Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations has introduced the Vendor Collaboration Portal. This portal allows you and your vendor to communicate purchase orders, notes, attachments, other documentation, as well as invoices and workflow approvals are all included. In this short video, we will submit a PO to the vendor portal. The vendor will review the PO and attachments. The vendor will confirm the PO. The vendor then can create an invoice and submit it to our portal, where we can then review, approve, and post that invoice. Let's go ahead and take a look in Dynamics 365 now. Let's start by reviewing a purchase order that we've prepared for CDW. As you can see here, I have item number 1000, which is a Surface Pro, being purchased for Site 1, Warehouse 13, a quantity of 3. And we can go ahead and submit this to the Vendor Collaboration Portal for their review to make sure they can handle the quantity at that price in the time frame required. This particular purchase order line actually had some attachments. Let's go ahead and review those attachments and see how they show up in the vendor portal when we flip over to that side. Through our document handling engine, you can see we can handle URLs, files of various types, notes, and other pieces of information that are pertinent to this purchase order and/or purchase order line. Let's go ahead and flip over to the vendor portal now to see what the vendor actually sees on their end. As you can see, there's workspaces for invoicing, purchase orders, as well as vendor bidding tied to RFQs. Let's go ahead and review the purchase order that we submitted to the portal. As you can see here, the purchase order, item number, quantity, price, as well as documentation, notes, and attachments have all been received here in the portal for the vendor's review. Now that the vendor has reviewed all of the pertinent information and documentation associated to this purchase order, they can either accept the PO, reject the PO, or suggest changes to quantity and price. For today's scenario, we'll go ahead and accept this PO, stating that the vendor can handle the quantity, price, and timeline that we suggested. The vendor also has an opportunity to enter notes and comments back to us to make sure that we're in agreement. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like on the purchaser side and if the vendor has responded. Here I can see the vendor's latest response, that they accepted the purchase order and that they can deliver the goods, the quantity, at that price on time. Next, the purchaser or buyer can confirm the PO, letting the folks in the warehouse know that they can expect these goods on this purchase order. Now that the vendor has shipped the goods, they can go ahead and generate a new invoice for that purchase order through the Vendor Collaboration Portal. The vendor simply clicks New Invoice, finds the associated purchase order and documentation that needs to be invoiced, enters other pertinent information and data, and then can submit that invoice to the buyer's organization. The vendor also has an opportunity to attach notes, documentation, URL links, and other information to the invoice prior to submitting to the buying organization. The Vendor Collaboration Portal is equipped with workflow capabilities that allow you to define workflow submission and approval rules, criteria, and other decisions, either conditional or manual. Once the invoice is submitted to workflow, it will be routed following the correct path based on configuration criteria and settings. Now that the vendor has submitted the invoice to the buying organization, the invoice will appear in the buying organization's pending vendor invoice screen, or can be accessed directly from the purchase order itself. So let's navigate there now, take a quick look. The AP invoicing process within Dynamics 365 allows for both two- and/or three-way matching to ensure accuracy within the accounting functions. The final steps would be to post the invoice and create a vendor payment. As soon as this invoice is posted, it will appear on the vendor portal as well. Thanks for joining me on the journey through the Dynamics 365 Vendor Collaboration Portal. Hope you learned something today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.